Michael, I hope you are safe. I haven't heard anything from you since the Wednesday, episode 57. And I look for you to keep me sane, I guess. I'm 55 years old. I live in Pennsylvania. I tried calling the Senate numerous times. It would either be busy or it rang and rang and rang and rang on Wednesday. Couldn't get through it all. I would have talked to Toomey or Casey, Toomey preferably because I hate him. And I'm just terrified. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get unemployment. I'm self-employed. Everybody's telling me I can't seem to get through on even the website. Waiting to hear from you.
This is Rumble, and I'm Michael Moore. Welcome, everyone. When we last left off on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I begged all of you to please call your senators to have them vote against this bill that they were getting ready to vote on at any minute, to vote against this giveaway to corporate America under the guise of helping the unemployed. Trillions of dollars were actually going into the pockets of the rich. 6 hours later, at 2 a.m. on Thursday, the Senate voted 96-0 for the multi-trillion-dollar so-called bailout package. And it did do and will do a lot to help those who have lost their jobs. And they knew that's how they could rob the bank, by doing a little bit of good for 4 months. It covers if you lost your job. Whatever the state doesn't give you in unemployment, the federal government will, up to about $600 each. I think 600 every pay period or 600 every week, whatever it is. They and they knew that would shut everybody up. It'd shut the Democrats up. It'd shut the liberals up. Go ahead and take from us, because we need to put food on the table, and we need a roof over our heads. And I say that with not an ounce of sarcasm, because that is what's necessary. Even Bernie voted for it. And, credit to him for, in the days leading up to that, he, leading others, stopped the original Senate bill, which was even a worse giveaway to the wealthy, and provided just a crumb to the people who'd lost their jobs. And he forced the Senate, and he promised, he and others in the House, in the AOC and others in the House, were going to raise holy hell if they didn't give a generous unemployment package to those who lost their jobs, to help out the small businesses, and to have certain guarantees and assurances in there for the next 4 months. And the rich said, well, okay, so what do we get out of this? And they had to go along with having the American public having the shakedown. Okay, because look what we've given you now, 4 months of unemployment insurance. Look at these other little gifts we've given you here. Every adult gets a $1,200 check if they make under $75,000 a year, in addition to the unemployment stuff. So, and there were other things too that were helpful. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'll take that. Just next time, if you're going to hit me right now, just please not too hard. Okay. Anyway, so I went to bed Thursday, 96-0. It didn't matter how many of us made calls, how many thousands of you, I'm sure, called that Senate switchboard after hearing this podcast. Didn't matter. And the next day on Friday, the House just did a voice vote. They didn't want Nancy Pelosi didn't want the Democrats to have yes beside their names voting for such a thing. So it's just a voice vote. So there's no, if you want to look up your member of Congress and how they voted on this, you can't, if you're a House member, because it was just a voice vote. Nobody's name attached to it. So there you go. By Friday night, I'm like, well, wow, now what? What do we do? What do we do? And what is the point of all this? It's very hard to talk politics during a time like this. I'm in day 21 of my self-imposed quarantine. And I don't want to say that I'm going batshit crazy here, but I have not left the apartment. And I stepped out once, to be honest. I think I mentioned that last week, but that was it. And that was, geez, how many days ago was that? That was 16 days ago? Yeah. So I literally haven't been out of this place since, and I'm alone. My podcast studio is in the other bedroom here, which is what I'm in. It used to be the other bedroom. Now it's the podcast studio 1A. We haven't given it a name yet. But I spent the weekend kind of rethinking, reassessing, and strategizing how best to use this podcast, what else we can possibly be doing in addition to the podcast, because obviously now is not the time to give up. And I said to Basil here, who's produces this thing with me, my longtime friend and producer, and has worked on since we were back in the Fahrenheit 9/11 days in 2004. I said, what do you think about what we've been doing lately here with the podcast? And he said, well, people are already depressed enough. Oh, I said, I know this is so dark. It's gotten so, but it is dark. It is dark, and we're in the middle. We are trapped in the middle. I had a chance to drive back to Michigan just before this, all hit, and I mean, I know, but I had a pretty good idea that things were going to go pretty bad. I know the name of the person in the White House, so it doesn't take a lot of math to figure out just how awful it's going to get. But I decided not to drive back to Michigan. I decided to stay here. Everyone, my friends and family in Michigan are like, "Are you crazy?" Now they're like, "You are crazy." And I see what's happening here in New York City. But I also say to them, you're now number 4. You're moving into number 3 behind New York and New Jersey. You have surpassed Florida, and you are ahead of Louisiana, way ahead of Louisiana, and you are going to surpass California tonight. That's how not together Michigan had it. I mean, the Michigan just went into the official stay-at-home thing, close the business down on Friday, just like 3 days ago. Way too late. And now Michigan's going to start to look like Italy. And it breaks my heart. People in New York have asked me, why didn't Michigan pay attention to what was happening here in New York? I mean, we screwed up in New York by not nipping this in the bud sooner, waiting on Trump, waiting on some leadership. Of all the places that knows Trump, it's New York City. And they knew that he's been a bullshit artist for 4 or 5 decades. So New York's in just a god-awful situation here. And, but why didn't Michigan take their cue from this? I said, well, you have to, first of all, Michigan's been battered pretty hard since the early 80s, really late 70s, early 80s. I remember in 1980, 82, the official unemployment rate in Flint was 29%. Okay, I don't even think we're at that even with this right now. It was pretty bad. So Michigan is, you know the whole story, and you've heard me tell it for years, and you don't need me to be pissing and moaning about it today, but you know what I'm saying. And so Michigan, I wasn't surprised. It wasn't quick on the uptake here, and so and now tragedy. Because if you think New York's having a hard time getting this equipment, the production equipment and the ventilators, Michigan is I don't know what to say. already one of the big hospitals is already out of ventilators there. And that was last week. That was the end of last week. So God knows, where things are at today. The way I've tried to explain it to people in New York, like why didn't Michigan get on top of this after they saw what was happening to New York? What I've said to them is just go to the videotape of when Joe Biden was in the auto factory in Detroit a few weeks ago before the Michigan primary. And one of the auto workers came up to him and said, you're going to take away our guns. And Biden, you remember the moment? Biden turns to him and just looks at him. He goes, "You're full of shit. I'm not going to take away your guns. I'm going to take away your bullets." Biden goes, "You don't need 100 bullets in the magazine. Shoot a deer. You don't know what you're talking about." Biden, see, because remember now, Biden, of course, as we know, in somewhat of a decline. I don't say that with any joy. I like the guy. Don't get me wrong. But it's also the beauty of old age too. It's the look on the guy's face when Biden snaps at him, goes right up in his face and goes, "You're full of shit." And that guy didn't know what to say. And I just thought, yeah, that's what I should have said in high school to that guy. Because you see, and this is what I explained to New Yorkers, all of us in Michigan, we went to school with that guy. We know that guy really well. We've had to suffer that guy since we were in junior high school, through high school, out in the workaday world, in the neighborhood. That guy and a few million like him, the ones that gave the state to Trump. So if you want to know why Michigan didn't get on board and stop and try to contain this, too late now. Think of that guy who stopped Biden to fight with him, and then and multiply him by a few million. So that's my sad answer. I have friends there. I care about the place. I can't say I'm happy to be here. I'm seriously, I feel like that I'm in the middle of the bubonic plague here. I feel like there's like a leper colony has formed around me, and it's in the air, and any of us could catch it at any moment. Now, none of that is true. It's not a plague. Bubonic plague was bacteria that went on for like 300 years. By the way, there's about 1,000 people a year that die of bubonic plague. It hasn't completely gone away. This stuff never ever really does, except for smallpox, I guess, maybe, I believe, has been arrested. But plague is still with us. You never hear about it. We have the medicine and the resources to contain it if something happens. We don't know COVID-19 because we've never seen COVID-19 before, and so it's brand new, and we don't know what to do. Well, I thought today, in response to what Basil was saying here about the, we've been pretty dark here on the podcast, and we've been consumed with the triple virus, as I call it, the actual biological virus of COVID-19, but then the other two viruses, the DJT virus, you know what okay, I don't have to explain that. Okay. And then the general societal virus, where we've let the top 1% take over, and the democracy that we hoped or thought we had has been pretty beaten down. And if we ever fixed that, if we ever cured that, if we ever had people in office that were true servants of the people, I mean, just take anybody, just imagine, just about anybody other than Trump right now would have been a better person to have in the middle of this emergency. This is the absolute worst case scenario that we're in. And how do we survive? How do we survive when we're surrounded by this madness? People are dying. We're getting to a point here in New York where you will have heard of somebody dying, somebody you know, or somebody, down the hall. As I told you last week, with the first person in this apartment building die. First person in the building. I say the first person because we know that person won't be the last. And now we've been told and I hear people talking. I don't go outside the door, but they talk in the hallway. My door is right by the stairway and the chute where you put the garbage down it. And so people stand out there and they talk, and, you know, it seems like there's another dozen people in the apartment building. I've heard as low as 6, but higher than 12 that have tested positive. Some of them have left. Some of them are probably in the hospital. I mean, nobody gets into it. Everyone's afraid. Everybody keeps their doors closed. And, boy, day 21. I'm on day 21 here. And now with Trump admitting that the stay-at-home order is going to have to be extended to the end of April, beginning of May. So, you know, if they're saying the beginning of May, you know what that really means, right? Yeah. See, they feel that we're babies, and they can't tell us too much information at once, afraid of what we'll do. So, you know, when they say end of April, beginning of May, they mean end of May, beginning of June is when we're probably going to be able to step outside. Or to whenever just enough people have had the virus and then are immune, so enough of them can step outside and work and do things, make it easier on everybody else. And the virus, you know, sort of starts to die down a bit. Doesn't go away, but it'll die down. Oh God! And I'll tell you, maybe you've been the same way. If you've done what I've done, if you're holed up, hopefully you are in your home, in your apartment. If you're out in the garage, please come back into the house. Okay, I know what you're up to. Back in the house. Don't give up here. But I know I can tell from the emails that you've sent, the voice messages you've left. That was one of the, you can leave a voice message to me on the podcast platform here. If you can't find it, go to my podcast on Anchor, and you can find the place where you can leave me a message. I love listening to these. Thank you for the people who've sent me voicemails. Or it's up, I think now, and I've got a couple thousand voicemails. I'm not completely caught up, but I'm getting through them, and I love them. And I guess maybe it's just we need the contact. We are as human beings, as a species, we are hardwired neurologically to need other people, to socialize and to be with other people. And in a moment like this, and especially now, maybe you're in your own self-quarantine, but you're with your spouse or your partner, with the kids. Yes, I've heard from my friends. I know everybody's climbing the walls. But there's a silver lining there somewhere, right? That look at all the time you get to spend with your kids. Those of us the ones of us who've raised our kids, I look back and I think, God, wouldn't that have been something like for 3 or 4 months? We don't have to work. We're at home. The kids don't have to go to school. They're at home. Whoa. What would have happened with that? That's the way I think. Because I think we were sort of the people that, I don't know. We would have written our daughter would have written a soap opera. That's what when she was a tween. She loved doing that. She'd write and write, and she was an actor, and we would act. We could have, that's what we could have written our own musical right here in this apartment. And I think maybe some of you are doing that now. Some of you are being creative, being artistic. Even if you don't think you're artistic, you're artistic. I think this is where we go wrong here. And we lose sight of the fact that we are creative people, that we are inventors. We have thoughts. We have new thoughts. We have crazy ideas, all that stuff. And it's starting to come out. But I have to say that I've been sitting in here like you've been sitting in where you're at. We've been watching paint dry. And this is paint that dried 20 years ago. There's just staring at the wall. Friends will call me up. What are you doing? I'm staring at the wall. You? Staring at the wall. How's it looking? Same. And I go, same old, same old. That's the extent of the conversations now after 21 days. And really, we have another 61. 63, at least 63 more days of this, probably. Maybe less. Fingers crossed. Maybe more. Fingers crossed again. It's really, is it having an effect on you? I don't know. I don't know if it's had an effect on me, but I do miss people. I miss the contact and the interaction. And Basil's my producer. He's home now. We're doing all this, of course, remotely, and I haven't been able to go on TV for 3 weeks. Was it 3 weeks ago today? 3 weeks. Geez, it feels like forever. 3 weeks ago today was the Michigan primary. It feels like 2 months. So Friday, the House passes this. I'm sitting there Friday night, sitting in my living room, staring at the wall, thinking, maybe I probably should do tomorrow's podcast, do one for the weekend. And all of a sudden, I hear from outside the building, outside the apartment building, what sounds like a riot. I mean, I'm serious. It was a little scary. I'm like, holy shit, it has hit the fan. What is going on? I mean, there was like screaming, and then I heard whistles, and, my first thought was, okay, if this, I'm glad I'm not in Michigan again. The number of guns in that state, not good. And not good for me personally, if you get my drift. I mean, in the small town where I live, a few years ago, the local gun store was handing out bumper stickers to advertise their gun store, and it was a picture of me on the bumper sticker with a bullseye over my face. And then I guess they were selling, they were selling targets for target practice, paper targets. One had my face on it. I think one had Barack Obama's face on it. And so you understand, I stayed in New York, okay, during this collapse. I'm certain nobody. I shouldn't say that though. I just started to say no. I'm sure nobody in this apartment building has a gun, but of course they do. New York City is not Gandhiville here, So, anyways, there's all this noise, and I get up and I kind of, cautiously approach the window of my apartment, and I look out, and I'm trying to figure out where's the crowd. I'm looking down on the street. I don't see a crowd. Looking up and down the street, and then my head comes up a little bit. I'm still looking up and down, but what I see looking up and down both sides of the street are people hanging out their windows. People hanging on every floor, hanging out their windows. I can see maybe 6 blocks up and 6 blocks down the street. And they are cheering and applauding and blowing whistles and horns and banging on pans. And I was like, what is going on? I immediately grabbed my iPhone. I just turned on the voice memo thing. I didn't have time to get a microphone or do anything here, but I wanted to grab the sound, and I thought, no, I should be filming this. No, I'm just going to run the sound of this on the podcast, because I was having literally an epiphany at that moment with what I was witnessing. Let me just run it, and you'll hear me talking because I can't help narrating the scene when I see one. Sorry, filmmaker habit. But here's a minute or so of what I witnessed and heard on Friday night at exactly 7 p.m. Well, I'm standing here in my apartment, and outside, if you could hear any of that, people up and down the street cheering, applauding, shouting out, "Thank you, I love you," blowing whistles, sounding those sports horns that you take to a game. It's just amazing. I didn't know what was going on, and I remember I saw something on the news yesterday in Atlanta or someplace where people were they were doing this like at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, hanging out their windows or their balconies or their front porches as a tribute to all the healthcare professionals, people that are risking their lives right now, the doctors and the nurses and all the intake people and the EMTs and the respiratory therapists and everybody else. Like all at once, the whole city just kind of rising up to say thanks. It was a pretty powerful thing just to witness right now. I'm gonna go back inside. I mean, that was really something. I came back inside and I was my mind was kind of blown, and the I don't know, the resilience, the realization that people weren't giving up. People were not just sitting inside being depressed or feeling the end was near, that we were in some sort of end times. Now, there's also something about the human mind, isn't it, that where we do want to live, and for the most part, despite all of its struggles and all the whacks that we take, it's better to be alive, and we all want to live through this. We all want to make it, and just the way people were screaming, and while I was in support of our healthcare workers, which is beautiful, there was also, and maybe it's just New York, but I'm telling you, Detroit would be the same way. There is a level of anger at this, why we're in the situation. How did it get here? How did the richest, most advanced country on earth not have the basic things that we need to survive? How did we end up with somebody in the White House that tried to ignore, starting his first press conferences, us just one Chinese. He goes, one Chinese, just one Chinese. This will be gone in a few days. And then it was like, oh, it's 15. There's 15. Nothing to worry about. This will all be over soon. Remember when I told you what I heard from the person who heard it in the White House? That he was sort of happy that Tom Hanks had come down with it, Tom Hanks and his wife, Rita Wilson, because this is what he said privately. Never thought I'd find out that he would have said this, but fortunately he said it around enough people, so the person who told this to me is not going to get exposed. He said, yeah, this is good. It's good that Hanks got this, because he'll get over it in 5 days, and that'll show everybody that this is nothing. The next thing I heard out of the White House from my one brave source who's just seen enough, they're all going to write books after all this is over, trust me. My source says to me that one of the theories that Trump has going on in his head is the survival of the fittest theory, which is it might be best to do nothing. Like, don't try to fight the virus. Just let it find the weakest people, because that's what it looks for. It looks for the weakest, the people who are already sick, who are ill, who are old, and let nature do its work. And the others who get it who are healthy are going to be immune. And once you have it, you're immune, and then the virus is gone. And that would be the quick way to get rid of it. He seriously was thinking along these lines. Somebody had mentioned it to him, because it's biologically, it's true. There is sort of a survival of the fittest when it comes to our species, and the unfit succumb to disease, to viruses, to bacteria, to just the enemy being stronger than you and defeating you. And I think in those first weeks, some of his thinking was that way, and some of his thinking in the same sort of way that where a few days ago he had decided not to send any equipment to Michigan because the governor didn't appreciate him enough. Like like a godfather. You don't kiss the ring. You don't get the cannoli. I'm sorry, I'm mixing Godfather metaphors there, but you get the gist of this. This guy is a thug. And the fact that when it was exposed that the Florida governor was getting 100% of the things that he was requesting, these red states were getting a response and the blue states were having to beg for it, making New York beg, making Cuomo and de Blasio beg for it. He loved it. He's a sick fuck, my friends. You already know that. I'm sorry for the language. If the children are listening, I'm sorry about that. But, that's just the way it is, isn't it? We know it. I think he knows it too about himself. I was just so impressed and inspired by what I saw out my window here in the city where, upwards to a couple of million people are going to be infected. Many of them are going to end up in the hospital. Maybe 10% of them. And anywhere from 1 to 5% of them are going to die. That's a boatload of people, my friends. But you know what? It's just like that. I just looking at these New Yorkers out their windows. And they were just like, if they could have shouted it, they would have just screamed, fuck this virus. Fuck this virus. And that's the right attitude. And that's what I wanted to do in this podcast today. I want to talk. I don't like happy talk and I don't like false hope. I think most hope is false. I think that's why we cling to hope, because we know it's going the other way and we think hope is somehow going to save us, and hope rarely saves us. I've talked about that before in these podcasts. I've talked about it in my last movie. Remember in the end of Fahrenheit 11/9? This is September of 2018. My last words were, Mueller is not going to save us. The Mueller report is not going to save us. Impeachment is not going to save us. The Democratic Party is not going to save us. I'm not going to save us. The only thing that's going to save us is us. All of us. Off the bench. Into the arena. If that happens, and here's the great math equation, there's more of us than there are of them. There's more of the 99% than there is of the 1%. There are more workers than there are bosses. There are more people who don't own this country than own it. There are more of us than there are of them. And even politically, there's more of us who believe climate change is real, who believe we should have been fighting this virus a month or two earlier, who believe that women's rights are the same as men's rights and that no man has a right to tell a woman what to do with her body. The majority of us believe all these things. The majority of us are against mass incarceration. The majority of us believe that you shouldn't be thrown in jail for smoking marijuana. Go down the whole list. The majority of our fellow Americans, as I've said many times before, and I'll say it until I know enough people, the majority of us believe it, that there are more of us than there are of them. I mean, this was proven just, what was this, yesterday? When Trump said the reason that he opposed the part of the Democrats' bill of this that passed last week, the Democrats squeezed the thing in there that said they had to put in money for if we have to do the election from home this year, that anybody can mail in their ballot, like an absentee ballot. And I forgot what the number was, but I think you need over $1 billion or whatever to do this. And Trump and the Republicans would only allow $400 million for it. And he was asked, why did you allow? Why didn't you just pay for the whole thing so we would be assured of everybody being able to vote? And Trump said yesterday, he said, or was it earlier today? He said, I'm not going to do it. If we did that, if we made it easy for everybody to vote, the Republicans would lose every election in this country. That is his exact quote from him. It's like an admission, like he knows. The majority of Americans don't agree with the Republicans. The majority of the Americans don't want the Republicans. That's why in the one place, even though it's heavily gerrymandered, the House of Representatives, the majority of Americans want the Democrats in there running it. And because he knows that, he was not going to allow in this bailout stimulus relief bill the chance to make it easy on people who are sick or confined during this pandemic to be able to vote in this presidential election. What an admission right there. He's saying, I know the majority don't want me. I do know I lost the popular vote. Why on earth would I do anything to encourage a mass participation in this year's presidential election in a country that doesn't want me or the Republicans? I mean, this is where you got to admit, this is where I love Trump in the way that he's like so honest. So many honest things he said over the years. When you're a star, you can treat women this way. He was telling the truth. Or I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and nothing would happen to me. That's true too. And if you let everybody vote, the Republicans lose. Yep, that's true too. You know, it's almost the way he has acted. I wonder how historians will write about this. At the beginning, it looked like back in January and February, he was struggling, not really struggling. It wasn't a struggle for him. He was really like, his gut feeling was, let them all die. Let them eat cake. Fuck them. The strong will survive. I represent the strong. I don't think he gave a shit. And it's so odd too when you think about, because his one like huge demographic for voting for him, age demographic, are people over the age of 65 years old. The people that the virus singles out more than anybody else, which, by the way, now we know that they've retracted what they said a month ago, that this doesn't affect young people. It affects young people. In fact, there was one day last week in New York City, there were more people hospitalized under the age of 49 than over the age of 49. So if you're in that age group, if you're from 14 years old to 49, you're in the same sad, deep mess that everybody's in. So please put that out of your heads. It may mean that if you're young, if you're a teenager, or 20 years old, you're probably not going to die, but you're going to get horribly sick and you're going to infect others. So you got to join in with everybody else. But this virus, though, people shouting out their windows, fuck this virus. Yeah, because it's a weak-ass thing, this virus. You know this, right? I mean, you've heard enough about COVID-19. COVID. Yeah, it's so badass. You can kill it with 20 seconds of soap. What else can you kill with 20 seconds of soap? Literally. And you know, they've seen the microscopic things, like 20,000 of these virus cells. The room it needs is the head of a pin. On the head of a pin, 20,000 of COVID-19s can fit. 20,000 on top of the pin. And in 20 seconds of hand washing, you've murdered 20,000 COVID-19s. Isn't that amazing? And if you put your food, if you're worried about it being on your food, put it in the microwave for 30 seconds, kills it instantly. COVID-19, dead. After 30 seconds in the microwave, I put a paper towel in the microwave for 30 seconds. I can put the paper towel in there for 30 minutes. Nothing happens to it. But a living virus, the mass killer across the globe, it's in there for 30 seconds and it's dead. 20 seconds of hand washing, 30 seconds in the microwave. That's all it can take. Yeah, it's a wussy. It's a weak little friggin' virus that doesn't even deserve to be on the planet. And you can kill it just like that. That's why, you see, because the same thing, by the way, if you don't want a microwave, anything you're cooking on the stove, if you've got the heat above 110 degrees, which if you don't know how hot that is, that's not even hot on a stove. To boil water? Isn't it like, doesn't the temperature have to come up to like 212 degrees or something, right? I may be off by a degree or two, but that's you only need 110 to kill COVID-19. 110. You could strike a match to it and it'd die, right? Just like that. I mean, think of how many things in your life that you've had to go through that you wish you could have gotten rid of with just 20 seconds of washing your hands. I mean, just think of the worst relationship you've ever been in. All you would have had to do is go to the sink, turn on the semi-hot water, put a little soap in there, 20 seconds later, boom, I'm out. It's over. What about that horrible job that you had? 20 seconds of hand washing, boom, gone. Think of anything that has sucked in your life, and all you would have had to do is put it in the microwave for 30 seconds, and it would be gone. That's COVID-19. That's how big, badass, strong COVID-19 is. It's none of that. Fuck you. Fuck you, COVID-19. How dare you even think of killing another person? Just because, like all the other species, we're still evolving, and our respiratory system somehow allows you in, and once you attach yourself, and you do it very slowly too. That's why you don't get like sick right away. Sometimes it could take 5 to 7 days with this. It just sort of settles in because it's a lazy ass little weak-kneed thing, Doesn't want to have to do any work. It's probably afraid it's going to die if it has to do any work. So it settles into your lungs. And after about 5-7 days, it's like, wow, I'm still alive in the midst of all this mucus and ooh. And then it goes about its job to kill you, if it can. It's helped by the fact if you've been a smoker, or if you have other illnesses, if you've had chemo, if you have asthma, if you're old, if you're a man. I think there's like 2/3 to 1/3. I think that was the statistic I saw, or 60-40 men, women getting this, dying. That's what it's banking on. It needs those things. It needs a little help from our own immune system. And if it's been compromised, that's where it succeeds. If it sees hot water and soap coming at it, it's like literally that's its version of the Japanese tsunami. However, those poor people must have felt when they saw that wave coming in from the ocean. That's what it looks like to COVID-19. Soap and water, 20 seconds. DOA. 30 seconds in the microwave. The food, don't put yourself in there, for Christ's sake. The food. And remember, no metal in the science oven. Don't get the fork off the plate. 30 seconds, DOA. No, I'm telling you, the main thing I wanted to do in today's podcast was to share with you how I think most of us can beat this. Can either not get it, or at least hopefully not die. There's a way to outsmart it, and it's a lot of the things that we've been told. It's washing the hands and then not putting the hands on your face, period. That's it. The best thing you can do, not be around anybody, but that's hard. I mean, you live with people. You have to go out and get groceries. You have to get something at the drugstore or whatever. So, but if you just keep washing your hands, I mean, it's that sort of thing. It's like, let's say the person at the grocery store has it. They don't know it. The symptoms haven't shown themselves to exist yet. And you take change from them or whatever. Is there really change anymore? You're there with the cashier and you touch the cashier's hand and they have COVID-19. It doesn't mean you're going to get it. It may mean they transferred the virus to your hand. It may be on your hand. But right away, the portable Purell or any kind of hand sanitizer that you can put on it right away, it's gone. Or you can't wash your hands till you get home. Fine. Go in the house, wash your hands 20 minutes, as hot as you can with the water and the soap. Scrub really hard. Scrub under the fingernails. You scrub the fingernails by scraping across the other palm from the other hand. Take the fingers and scrape them hard, 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 hard. And that gets the soap and water under them. Do the same with the thumb. Then get a Clorox wipe or whatever you're using to wipe things down and retrace your steps back to the car. Wipe the handle of the door that you came in, the handle of the fridge that you opened, whatever you touched. Do your handles on the car. Do the steering wheel, anything your fingers might have touched. Do all that. And guess what? COV, ID, 19, DOA. Just like that. Even if the person has got it and they've handed you COVID-19 into your hands, as soon as you do the 20 seconds of hot water and soap, boom, done, over. It's that easy. If you don't have to go out, don't go out. Don't ever go out. The absolute 100% guarantee of never getting this is you don't go out, nobody comes in, and you do that during this time of quarantine. If you do that, if you remove all contact with other humans, you will not get this virus. Now, that's very hard for most people, I realize, but if you set that as the goal, and then the few times you have to have an exemption, you scrub those hands right away. And even after scrubbing them, you never touch your face. You don't wipe the tears from your eyes. If you got to do that, I know a lot of people crying these days. Get some Kleenex and wipe your eyes. If you're going to sneeze or cough or whatever, use a Kleenex. If you got an itch, you want to wipe something from your mouth, get a napkin. Don't use your hands. Do not let your hands touch your face. That's easier said than done. Already during this podcast, I had an itch on my cheek and I itched. I'm like, don't do that. Don't. Just put your shoulder up to your face and rub it on the shirt. But I'm telling you that we can live. This doesn't have to get the better of us. And already they're seeing in New York, because of the social distancing, because people have stayed home, there's still more and more people being hospitalized every day. It goes up every day. But 6, 7, 8 days ago, the number was doubling. The number of people being hospitalized was doubling every 2 days. And then it went to every 4 days. And now today it's every 6 days. The number is doubling. So it's still doubling. But the rate has slowed. And the rate has slowed is because people have been paying attention. They've been washing their hands. They've been staying home. They've not touched their face. And they've kept their immune system strong by getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, eating food as healthy as you can get it in times like this. It is what it is. You don't want to go outside for a walk necessarily. They say you can. I'm not telling you don't do it. But if you have to do it and stay away from people. But you got to get some kind of exercise, even if it's in the house. You got to move around. You got to lift things. If you do just these simple things, you're going to live. I know you want to go see the grandparents. You can't do that. You got to FaceTime. If they don't know how to FaceTime, you got to just talk to them on the phone. Don't risk their lives at this time. But you're seeing more and more of these statistics, at least in New York. And you got to look at New York, as I said, as the guinea pig. This is how it's coming to your state. And if you do what New York is doing, you're going to have a better chance of surviving. Every day now, there's 600 to 800 people being released from the ICU. Everybody who goes to the ICU doesn't die now. They're having a lot of people being released. So, there's a lot of pieces of good news. They're going to have a test that's very easy to use and to do. I think some of it will be self-administered. You may be able to get the test and just do it at home, like a pregnancy test. That's right around the bend here. They should have a test in the next couple of weeks where you'll be able to, within 15 minutes, know if you've already had it. You may have already had it and don't know it. It may have passed through you like it does through many people. You might have gotten a sore throat back in January. You just thought it was a sore throat. Back, those of us who were out on the road with Bernie, geez, every day we were around thousands of people. I don't know how many selfies I must have done over 4 weeks. That was 4 weeks on the road. And I remember when I got back, they were like, I don't know, I felt a little warm. For 2 or 3 nights, I'd wake up, my t-shirt was soaked with sweat. And I'm like, wow, how did that happen? Don't fill in the blank there. Day 21, quarantine. But seriously, I thought, well, maybe, did I have this? Basil was out on the road there with Bernie and came down with what we thought was a cold. Didn't really know. A lot of us may have already had it. Oh man, would I love to find out that I've already had it. If you've already had it and they've determined that yes, this particular virus, like most other viruses, inoculates you at least for 6 months, if not a couple years from getting it again. I'm thinking like the first thing I have to do is I have to sign up to volunteer somewhere. I got to go because I can't give it to anybody and nobody can give it to me. So, if that's the case, I think a lot of us should be doing that. If it turns out we're okay. I can go for a walk. I can get fresh air. There's a way to stop this. Very simple way to be a mass murderer of COVID-19. Wash your hands for 20 seconds. Stay inside. If you feel like you need to, but you probably don't. If you're getting delivery, takeout, you can nuke your food if you want. You don't have to do that. And then keep your immune system strong by doing all the things you know that you need to do. Vitamin C and zinc. Get 8 hours sleep. Drink lots of water. Move around. Lift some books. That's really, it's all, a lot of it's grandma advice and a lot of it is what they already know about this virus. There's no reason any of us should have to die, even though I realize some of us will because of things our bodies, the way our bodies already are. I'm a guy, I'm not 25 years old. I had pneumonia a few years ago. That must have done a number on my lungs. That probably compromised me in some way. So, but nonetheless, if you want, I'm not saying take a stupidly positive attitude here, but science has already told us how we can survive this. And while we need our government doing the things it should have been doing and must be doing now, if we're going to stay strong and be healthy and be able to fight for the people who are more vulnerable, who are less fortunate, who the government seems willing to just let them die, or to ignore states like Michigan, we're not going to be able to help any of those people if we're sick ourselves. You can keep from being sick and you can stay alive by doing these very basic things. And think of just the good news that does exist. Take some joy in that. Have you seen how many tens of thousands of people have volunteered already just in New York? They put a call out for retired nurses, doctors, respiratory therapists, nurses' aides. If you can help, call this number and volunteer. If you're from another state where it isn't happening yet, if you could come here, we'll come there to you when it happens to you. What's the number? It's like over 60, 70,000 people from around New York and from other states have volunteered to sign up to be a healthcare professional during this moment of crisis. Wow. They set up a mental health hotline for anybody who just wants to talk to somebody. You feel this is a depressing moment. You need to talk to somebody. I think they've got yesterday it was 15,000 shrinks or mental health professionals have called to volunteer, that they'll talk to people over the phone if need be. This is who we are. This is what people do in times like this. And yes, we're all going to lose people. You're going to hear of somebody that you used to work with that's passed away because of this. Some of us may lose people that are close to us, people that we love. friends that we've had most of our lives. I mean, any of this could happen. We know that. And I don't want to take you back into the utter sheer terror that this is, because I'm really trying to tell you in this podcast today how much strength you have and how much ability you have to first keep yourself alive and then get involved and help others and stay a citizen, get involved politically, because this bastard, I said this after he was elected. I think I tweeted out a one-line thing that said Trump was going to get us all killed. I mean, I meant that somewhat rhetorically, but I also meant it. Yes, it's also true. He's going to make decisions. He's going to gut the EPA. He's going to do things that are actually going to end up resulting in the deaths of human beings. I never thought it would be this direct, though. I thought it'd be more like A to B to C, not just a direct. Yeah, I'm not gonna do this or that. People are now just dying simply because of masks, the lack of masks, things like that. I kept the window open on Friday night after all that cheering up and down the street. Oh, man. I became realistically hopeful. I began to feel that, well, I knew I wasn't alone, but now I was reminded in a very loud way that I wasn't alone. None of us are alone. That most people are good. Most people will fight. Most people are filled with enormous gratitude to those who are putting themselves in danger so that others can live right now. And I kept the window open, and I kept looking out it for quite some time. It was dusk. I think the sun went down probably 10, 20 minutes later. And the moon appeared in that beautiful dusk, what we call the magic hour, the sky. It's that kind of rich, dark blue. It's dark now. The sun is down, but the sun is still over the horizon, still popping up some light so that the atmosphere, we still see the blue sky, even though it's a night sky now. It's still in those final moments. And it's blue, then it's medium blue, then it's dark blue, and then the blue disappears. But before it became black, I looked up and there was the moon, and it's the first time you see the moon. After a new moon, you get that sliver, whatever that sliver is of a moon. I think it has a name. I don't know what it is. It's beautiful. It's kind of the crescent moon, the crescent that's in that's one of the symbols of the Muslim faith. And against that that dark blue backdrop, it was so full of life. And you have to understand too, when you're looking up at the sky in New York, you generally never see the sky, day or night. And at night, you don't really see the blackness of it, because there's so much light from the city, or there's, the very basic pollution. There's all of that. And we're on an ocean, so there's a haze, a lot of times. So, but not Friday night. It was like pitch clear. I'm gonna post this photo on the platform here so that you can see what I'm talking about. I didn't filter it. All I did was I made it just zoomed it a little bit bigger, just so you could, how the lens is on the camera that's on your phone. I wanted it to look exactly how it looked like with my eyeball as I was looking at it. I want you to look at it too, because that silver moon, that silver sliver of a moon, that silver lining that does exist, and there's many silver linings right now. I really believe that we're going to come out of this on the other end, a changed people. We're going to come out of this. It's going to get better. We're going to come out of this with new ideas. People right now who've got these 3 months or so, people are home inventing something right now. Do you realize that? We don't even know what the inventions are. People are coming up with great ideas. People are coming up with a different way to live, to be, as a people, as a country, as a world, as a society, as a culture. People are People are writing poems right now. People are home writing songs. People have decided they want to live. It didn't take a lot to come to that conclusion or that decision, but I really believe that when this is over, and it will be over, and if there's one thing I want you to take from this podcast today, it's that sentence. This will be over. This shall end. There's no doubt about that. This has an end. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Some of that depends on us. Some of that depends on the leadership that must be removed. Removed with such enormous force. Come this fall. None of us forgetting what we were put through. This will end. This will end. It has an end date. We don't know the date yet. But there is the other side of this. And think about what we can take with us to the other side of this pandemic. When we come out alive, stronger, more committed, and filled with love and kindness and a commitment to a different and a better life for ourselves and for others. All you have to do is wash your hands. All you have to do is be careful. That's all. You do that, you live. I need you to live. I need to live. We can do this together. As worried and upset as I've been, as much as I've encouraged you to join with me to fight that battle that needs to be fought politically so that we do live, I know it's hard, and I know at times it feels pretty dark. But that old stupid cliche of, the darkness before the dawn, it's actually true. It actually is the darkest just before the dawn begins. And when the dawn post-pandemic takes place, watch out. We're going to take a lot of the joy and a lot of the fun that we discovered by being holed up inside. We are going to take that and we are going to run with it. And we are going to get together in a way we never thought of getting together before. Profound changes are going to take place in the way that we interact and the way that we structure things. I promise you this. Stay alive. Stay alive. Wash those hands. I love you. I really love you. And I'm excited to think and to see what's going to happen next. I'll talk to you tomorrow. You won't have to wait more than 24 hours before you hear from me again. Thanks so much.